Hi, my name is Justice Paulus. I am currently a junior within the political science major here at Bloomsburg University. I chose the topic of clientelism as it relates to Japan's economic stagnation because the issue of Japan's economic troubles is a fascinating concept. If you're like me when I started this research paper, you probably have no clue what clientelism actually is. Modern studies of clientelism erupted around the 1960s and 1970s in researchers' study of classical societies. Tina Hilgers stated that early on, clientelism was defined as an intricate personal relationship involving norms of reciprocity between two individuals engaged in the exchange of goods and services. Over time, the term has come to represent multiple types of political exchanges. Hilgers claimed that the basic components of clientelism include face-to-face contact, a trade between individuals to establish the most benefits for both, an enduring interaction, an interaction that occurs over time and not just in an instant, and one party of the interaction is of higher status than the other. Hilgers also mentioned that these informal political exchanges have a significant impact on the formally established rules and channels of democratic politics. McCourt deemed clientelism a moneyless form of corruption. Singelman commented that clientelism may help the elite perpetuate its hold on political or economic power. Overall, clientelism seems to have these basic characteristics. 1. It is an exchange. 2. It is an exchange between two individuals. 3. It is an exchange in which one individual seeks political support from the other. And 4. It is potentially subversive of democratic principles. Japan has remained fairly stagnant economically for just over 20 years. Part of this issue stems from the bubble burst Japan experienced in the 1980s, which was a ridiculous fall in its Nikkei 225 stock market index. Housing prices also experienced a fall. Some point to the Japanese government's slow reaction to the crisis as the reason the problem has perpetuated. For the most part, the political party that has maintained power throughout the course of Japan's economic woes is the Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP for short. One author states that the LDP has engaged in clientelistic practices for a long time, stemming from the pre-1994 era. One author states that the Liberal Democratic Party has engaged in clientelistic practices for a long time, stemming from the pre-1994 era of Japanese politics. A sort of clientelism was seemingly expected by voters after 1994, whereby voters would assume that candidates would ensure some material monetary benefit. Norris describes how the elected candidates for each district act as a source to the national treasury for said district. If the candidates are so concerned with funding for their local prefectures, how can they focus on the national economy? Since the candidates are focused on getting re-elected, which in turn means they are focused on gaining monetary allocations for their local prefectures, it would seem natural that national issues would be a secondary focus compared to their local regions. For a comparative perspective, I looked at the country of Germany. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD for short, reports that Germany has a strong economic outlook for the coming year, and has been financially well off in recent years. In contrast, Japan's economic forecast is relatively dismal. The OECD makes a number of suggestions for Japan to improve their economy, including an increase in the consumption tax and strong structural reforms that would raise productivity within the country. A few studies suggest that Germany has at least some form of clientelism. One research discussion panel analyzed Germany's clientelism and stated that Germany's clientelism involves German voters choosing candidates based on individual traits of the candidates and the promises that those candidates make, which could result in a form of payment. This payment could, in effect, be through housing or healthcare legislation, or the creation of other legislation or policy implementation. Now, both countries have some form of clientelism. However, their economies differ substantially. Germany continues to perform rather well, while Japan still seems to struggle. So, perhaps the root cause of Japan's economic stagnation isn't simply clientelism. But there is a difference between the two countries. Japan's clientelism involves a direct source of monetary revenue for local prefectures, whereas Germany's involves policy creation that establishes benefits for voters. So, if clientelism does indeed perpetuate the economic stagnation of Japan, it could be due to the way Japan's clientelism diverts attention away from the national economy and focuses funding towards local prefectures. As stated before, some have pointed to the Japanese government's slow reaction to the economic bubble burst as reason behind their perpetual economic stagnation. The suggestion that the Japanese government was slow to react could go hand in hand with the Liberal Democratic Party's domination of politics in the country over the past 20 to 30 years. This domination may in turn coincide with the clientelistic practices that Japanese politicians engage in, thus meaning that clientelism could, in fact, be the root cause of Japan's economic stagnation. If you are looking for more information on this subject, here are some sources to get you started.